Are you ready for some smite? Ladies and gentlemen, I certainly am. Hinduman, on the other hand.
I'm always ready.
Are you ready?
I'm perfectly ready.
Are you ready?
Perfectly ready.
Glad to hear it. So am I.
Panthera versus Cringe Crew will be the game we're viewing today. Cringe Crew with some roster changes eventually coming through. I believe Deathiance will be playing once again for them in the solo lane with Zashu having a suspension. So once again, they're against Panthera, who are currently 8-0, as you can see in the standings.
Yeah, they're sitting up on top number one, numero uno. How do they say that in Londonese, Hinduman?
Numero uno, I guess.
Paradigm
is
Paradigm's up number 2. Dignitas has quickly ascended the ranks and find themselves at number 3. And then Cringe Crew, the squad that we're going to watch today, is at number 4. And they're 3 wins right now. They're 3-3. So if they do wind up taking both of these games against Panthera, they will force themselves up into the 3rd place spot.
Yeah, true. But the likelihood of that is slim to none, right? It's Panthera, at the end of the day, who are still undefeated, apart from the during regular Pro League season, I might add. The worst they've done is a singular split up against Fnatic last season. However, at the Super Regionals, they did lose to Paradigm, but that wasn't the regular season, so it doesn't count.
That's very true. That is the postseason stats. We're just talking about the regular season. And the regular season is exactly what we're going to get into. Picks and bans between these two teams will be coming in just a moment. But as we talk about the two teams and their makeup, Panthera will choose first. What gods are we really expecting to see here today, Hindu?
Well, the most interesting one is definitely going to be Cringe Crew have banned or picked Neith in every single game they've been in so far. Played 6 games, and if they've not picked it, they have banned it. So expect to see that one potentially be a ban or an early pickup for Cringe Crew. Panthera, they've been order every single time so far this season. They've played only 1 chaos game this season. So they definitely favor the order side of things, finding 7 of their 8 wins over on this side. And to be fair, their picks this season haven't been too surprising. They've been quite varied in some of their god picks, but nothing like predominantly taken over for them in terms of where they're going to go.
So this Neith pick for Cringe Crew actually usually comes surprisingly early. Usually we like to see Neith picked a little bit later, but Cringe Crew won't shy away from picking it up first or second. So Panthera will get the ultimate first pick here, but I'm very curious to see where Cringe Crew goes to elect, because as Neith is selected, Panthera's done their homework. Cringe Crew right now, it's a little bit backwards, but they need to pick Vamana here.
They need to pick Vamana. Well, do they need to pick Vamana?
Yes.
I mean, so far, Deathiance, he's only played Vamana and Bellona.
And the Vamana was far better than the Bellona.
Agreed.
In fact, the game that he played Vamana on, as Janus has picked up for Kero, the game that he played Vamana on, he was one of the only positive players on his team. He's a substitute. He's more of a coach than a sub. He's the secondary sub. Sagi Sandal, their normal sub, is just not here. So for him to be able to perform on that Vamana, I want to see it early in the draft, but that's not the case.
No, not the case at all. They're going to go back to the Nija once again. Cringe Crew really favoring this god opportune times, although this season, to be fair, they've mixed things up quite a lot this season in terms of their picks and bans. Only really Shaggyshenk sticking to only 3 gods so far this season. The rest of the team looking at 5 or 6 different gods in the last 6 games.
Panthera will stick to their at least archetype. Ares, always the very aggro supports coming out for iRaffer. And Isis will be selected for Yammyn, which Isis, 1, it's surprising to find her this far down in the draft. But 2, Isis is a character that, although very strong in the current meta, hasn't always been observed by Panthera.
Surprised by the Geb pick there by EmilZy. Athena was available on the table, but not chosen this time. Maybe up against the matchup against Ares, but then Geb, not the greatest matchup in lane against Ares here as well. Ho-Yi is still available. I'm expecting a potential ban coming out here by Panthera against that one.
We'll take a look, and honestly, the way the supports work in lane now is very different, because with the advent of Throwing Dagger being the go-to start for many hunters, the clear is relatively irrelevant.
I mean, to be fair, the clear actually comes down to the support more than the hunter now, because all hunters can clear evenly with that golden bow start now, the Throwing Dagger. So you see more supports being important in terms of the wave clear early. Geb, depending if he goes for the shock wave or goes for the shield max here early, will influence the wave, as well as Ares. I mean, for the most part, Raffer, very, very well known for not maxing his saving flesh, his 3. He'll focus on the chains and obviously the extra defenses he gets from bolster defense. I like the Apollo ban, though, from Panthera there as well. I expected that's where Shaggy was going to go to next. We've seen the rise of Apollo.
Sure.
And with Kronos already off the table, there's only really... Shaggyshenk's going to be playing something different so far this season. He's played 2 Kronos games, 2 Ho-Yi games, and 2 Sol games. So maybe we'll see an ul out of him, one of his old tried and true from the old coast days.
It's very possible. We could also see, although Geb there, okay, no. We'll take a look at where Cringe Crew likes to go. It's going to be the Anhur. So, very interesting. Cringe Crew are going to stick Deathiance with the last possible pick.
But that's a good thing to do because you're giving yourself the opportunity to counter pick and give yourself a favourable matchup in the position. For the most part, though, it's up against Dimi. Dimi's played a lot of Amaterasu this season. Bellona and Tyr is pretty much his god pool. Yes, it is wider, but why not just keep going back to the same old, same old?
Exactly.
Unless you want to experiment, because you know you've got a chance here against Cringe Crew with a weakened lineup.
I mean, people always give, particularly solo laners, Agita for, hey man, you only play Bellona. You know, speaking about Omega specifically, but like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if Bellona's winning you all your games, keep on keeping on. So Dimi, I feel like I've seen him on Amaterasu almost every single game, but he's killing it on Amaterasu. So why change it up at all?
Completely agree, but it will be Guan Yu finally locked in. Now, Guan Yu more than likely the solo laner for Ninja Dimi. Cringe Crew final pick. I could potentially see a Vamana come out here more than likely for Deathiance over in that solo lane. Did pick up Bellona, however, Bellona banned away this time round by Cringe Crew, so Vamana will be the last pick. And realistically, we've said this a couple of times, but coming up against Panthera just lately, I always get it wrong. I always want to say
you gotta add the H.
I like leaving the H in.
You gotta leave the H.
But Panthera here, the big thing for most teams this season is see where you measure up against them. Sure. See where your weaknesses are and where your strengths are based off how the game goes. If you can take the game long, like Fnatic did against Panthera this weekend, then you go showing good signs of being able to weather the storm of the 16-minute Panthera freight train that comes at you.
Yeah.
However, if you start to struggle, you need to realize it's your early game or your compositions that are hurting you. As we go into game now, though, emilitoo will be on that Neith for the second time this season.
Panthera's lineup is very interesting to me because there is no straight carry. There isn't a straight carry on this team.
Well, really, what you mean in terms of the actual players or the gods?
The gods.
So yeah, I mean, in terms of the gods, no one specially is going to exactly go off in 100-0 somebody.
Yeah.
Fenrir can in the late game. I mean, technically, Isis can in the late game too. If you get Spirit Ball.
Isis is the character that I'm looking at the most. If Yammyn elects to go Doom Orb and heavy power, then Isis can be that hard carry. But I mean, iRaffer on Ares, it's a support, although he's going to carry a little bit more. Neith is not traditionally a hard carry. Guan Yu is Guan Yu, and Fenrir builds into the defense late game. All of these characters are these sort of mid-range hybrid carries where Neith can do the work, but she's going to be more oriented around not so high-end damage, etc. for everyone, including the Isis. Very interesting strategy.
And with these teams as well on paper, I like to see what we're going to see from supports. Both of them going for the blink early game, which shows a lot of lane pressure here that's going to be looked for. They're both looking for the big blink ultimates at level 5 to initiate for their team. The only bad news of this is EmilZy on that Geb. If he gets chained early, he's got no way of really disengaging away from this Neith Ares combo, who, to be fair, those two, very, very good at setting things up with the root, with the chains to pick up a Geb kill quite cleanly. Luckily for him, though, he has got an Anhur on his side who can put out a lot of early damage, especially with that throw-in dagger.
Our jungles will meet up with the mid laners here, Fenrir and Naja for Panthera and Cringe Crew respectively. Repikas electing to go with the red pot start, so Naja wants to get the party started early on.
There was a little bit of an advantage over for Panthera there on the right-hand side. They did take the mid hotpies and the blue buff there, did Dimi and Adapting, which means the left one's being contested here. That's why you see Cringe Crew rotating with Geb early to secure these and keep that even as possible.
The Spirit Ball goes off, but a nifty little Janus portal there, honestly, saved the life of those mid-harpies.
That was wise from Kero. Just make sure the Spirit Ball doesn't connect and steal it away, which was quite a possibility. But it did lose a little bit of Wayne pressure there over on the duo side for Shaggyshenk. Now they've got to try and push that back a little bit now, especially with the balls respawning. Otherwise, Panthera will look to invade on the balls there. But an early rotation towards the, well, not really early, towards the imps, I was going to say towards the solo lane for Deathiance, but no, not to be. Going
back to Deathiance here now, Cringe Crew, their normal solo laner Zashu has been banned for harassment. Deathiance in a little bit of trouble, level 3 all aboard, so does he have the dash just yet? If he has clear the path, he's fine. And he's not fine. Adapting, gonna dive the tower. Pick up the first blood onto the coach sub Deathiance, and I expect this to be
There's
the
a
strategy.
rotation coming from Repikas, though, but I'm not sure what he can really do here. Maybe just pick up the farm to make sure there's no lane pressure. Definitely can't fight both of them. Adapting goes in for the damage instead, gets it turned around, and the rotation from Kero is good, but he doesn't find any damage.
Well played by Adapting, just dodging and weaving in between everything that was coming at him. Basic attacks and...
And this is the right call from Panthera. They're not going to give an inch wherever they
Yeah.
can. They recognize there's an opportunity for pressure, so let's abuse that pressure on the substitute, the coach who's stepping in here, who himself has said that he's a little bit worried about having to step into this role against who he rates as the world champion solo lane and Ninja Dimi, the best in the world.
It's actually really funny how Panthera have shown no mercy here early in the game, just going directly for him, whereas in the picks and ban phase, they didn't target the Vamana, which is the only character that he's played well so far.
But you don't have to worry about the Vamana if you know how to handle it.
Sure.
And one way to handle it is gank it over and over again early, and that's why Adapting's hanging out here.
But so what I'm saying, the only god that... So Deathiance has played 2 gods so far in the Pro League, and he only did well on 1, and it was Vamana. You ban it out, and you do the same strategy of camping the god that Deathiance can't play.
Quite
now
possible.
you're in a much better spot.
Quite
so
possible.
Panthera play it nice and easy during P's and B's, but when it comes time to the game, forget about it.
So Adapting off to a flying start with first blood. Still has a power pod ticking away. As you see, he's going to go back to base and work on those boots. I'm not sure if he's got enough gold for full warrior tabby. He may be
Yes, he
close, though.
does.
Just about.
Yep. Finish up those warrior tabby. Nothing too surprising there. What will be interesting is to see what direction Adapting goes on after this. As I mentioned, not a lot of straight damage coming out from Panthera. A lot of hybrid characters. So normally we see Fenrir's go either Jotun's Wrath or more defensive with a breastplate or something. I'm expecting a Jotun's here. I think that Adapting has more on his plate to do as far as just raw damage on the dog.
And I feel that's what Panthera's game plan here has been, is go for the lane pressure in all the lanes. Control all the lanes early and just not allow Cringe Crew to get to that mid game where they can manage to group up and be on an even keel with Panthera. Panthera looking to dominate early, put the pressure on with some of the early game gods like the Isis, like the Fenrir early, can really put an impact in.
And that's what Ares is going to do to the mid lane as well. iRaffer shows up and pushes Cringe Crew out just by sheer force. Throws a couple of chains out, and it's enough damage to not threaten the lives of Cringe Crew, but make sure that they don't want to dance. Left Harpies go to Panthera.
Goes to Panthera, and then they're going to go over towards that red buff as well and just pick that one up as we tune in with emilitoo, who started throwing dagger on Neith. Now, it's not something... We start to see this more and more out of a lot of the hunters that I'm surprised to see it on more than anything. Obviously, an example here is emilitoo playing a god called Neith. Neith is one of these that has very, very high power in terms of abilities. Big scaling on the abilities, so you're looking for transcendence, you're looking for power spikes. The throwing dagger doesn't really give her that, but it does help her clear the wave without having to spend mana on clearing the wave.
Sure.
Which leaves the root and damage available, but your damage is lower overall is the big thing I'm saying here.
Exactly.
I'm concerned by we're seeing more on this throwing dagger, which tells me that hunters, they believe the throwing dagger is just so strong that they can't pass it up in this early game.
Exactly. I definitely think that there are different builds for different hunters, and I suppose different playstyles, but Neith is definitely more of the ability-based hunter that the throwing dagger is a little bit curious on. Similar to Uller. If I see the throwing dagger on Uller, I kind of personally would rather see the transcendence.
It's surprising on a lot of gods. I mean, we saw the throwing dagger come into the meta, and we expected it on people like Apollo, who doesn't have a great wave clear with his so beautiful. However, gods like Anhur with Impale, he's getting it. Gods as well, like Ho-Yi, whose wave clear isn't relatively strong, but it's not super weak that you have to pick this one up.
Well, I look at it
and they use their abilities for the most part.
Well, I look at it more the difference between basic attack hunters and ability-based hunters. Neith, Anhur to a certain extent, as we mentioned, Uller, these are all ability-based hunters. You're going to want the Transcendence, and then, to take the conversation just for argument's sake, Jotun's Wrath would not be a silly item on those characters. Whereas Apollo, Jotun's Wrath would probably be a little bit sillier. So if you're building into those, if you're playing the ability-based hunters, I kind of feel like the throwing dagger is a little curious, but
it's working out, and people are making good work of it. That's the main thing.
We saw what Oceans was able to do with it yesterday.
But that wasn't Apollo. Oh, that was Anhur as well.
That was Anhur.
And he's been played on Apollo too. Mid lane, Spirit Ball gets fired off, but in the jungle, iRaffer going to get hit a little bit by Repikas there, but he's got a rotation from Adapting coming in now.
Stun.
Mail up for a pick.
And there's the ultimate out of the big woof woof. Beads is going to be strong enough, but iRaffer goes up into the sky himself, pulls EmilZy, more importantly, stuns EmilZy, and Adapting's going to chase it down. The Geb stun is off the mark. And EmilZy is going to be able to roll out. No kills for anybody, but right-hand Harpies go to Panthera.
Just off the mark with that on-chain there was adapting, otherwise Geb definitely would have fallen down for the second kill of the game in favor of adapting there over on that right-hand side. But you could see that what Panthera were trying to do, it was actually EmilZy, even though he did, you know, nearly get caught out there, his Cataclysm actually stopped his teammates from dying, which is a sign of a very good support play.
So emilitoo just cleared the wave with 2 basics. More importantly, he used 2 abilities. He set up the wave with the backflip and then detonated it with the spirit arrow. He basic attacked that wave twice.
Yep.
Not getting the... did not use the throwing dagger.
Well, and that's why I'm confused about why we're seeing throwing dagger on some of these ability-based gods. Yeah, you can find that RNG crit that a lot of people have been talking about, but it is generally there for helping you wave clear early on.
Exactly.
The crit will come in now and again, but for the most part, it's just helping with wave clear. But why do that on Neith? Is it just for that RNG? That's the question I'm asking. I'm guessing it is. It's the only reason I can see it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. Throwing dagger doesn't have the movement speed that Golden Bow has at its full capacity. It's pretty much it's just a small amount of power and 10% crit. So, I don't know. It's very interesting, but of course, we are talking about the world champion emilitoo. So, more of a conversation about the other options than straight up calling them wrong.
I mean, we never do that anyway. I don't really call builds wrong. I would just like discuss the merits and non-merits of actually picking those items.
I have very rarely called builds wrong. I always believe in the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the pro players. Something's going on, right? No player in the SPL is just going, I'm going to like the color, so I went for it.
Well, we're tuning with emilitoo, who does this classic Neith pose. And it's emilitoo's pose, I want to call it.
This is the emilitoo.
He just does this the whole time. He's got nothing else to do, nothing to farm in the jungle, as you can see it's all down. So let's just channel World Weaver. Yep. And when it's fully channeled, obviously, lasts a little bit longer. So it allows him to just get it ready for the prime opportunity, if there ever is one.
And more importantly, Brandon always talks about the intensity and the importance of keeping your comms clear and clean. If every time Neith goes down on one knee, your hunter is Neith ult, Neith ult, Neith ult, Neith ult, well, that's going to be more problematic than it's not. So what happens is you set up the situation where your enemy hunter doesn't call every time you get down to fire the Neith ult. So when you actually do hit the button, there's no call.
No call at all. But the difference is here, emilitoo is channeling it, and the boys of Cringe Crew, the dual line, are like, guys, they're channeling it, and mid and jungle just went, well, we're in base anyway, don't worry. Yep. Vamana's under my tower, so, you know, we're all safe. And that's kind of the play style for Cringe Crew here. Play safe, don't allow Adapting and World Weaver to combine nastily, and then wait for a team fight that goes in your favor. But Panthera, on the other hand, they're not going to give them the opportunity to do that.
Double stun out of the jungler. Here comes iRaffer. Damage is easy. Adapting picks up his second of the contest, 2 in total. Looking for 3. iRaffer has gone up. And the pull is strong. Repikas going to take a big chunk thanks to Isis, but a strong portal or a strong pillar out of Shaggyshenk, excuse me.
It was more the Cataclysm that came out from emilZy there to actually defend that stops him from being a second kill. But that was just Panthera recognizing the rotations coming out from Cringe Crew. They knew they were going to contest the wave in mid lane. They saw him go to the left-hand side behind the tier 1 tower, so they knew where they were going to be. Immediately, dual lane had pressure. They rotated as well with the blink from iRaffer, secure a second kill for free.
And that, like I said, that portal, the Cataclysm got the stun, but I guess call it a portal again. But the pillar really stopped any aggression. Deathiance
talk about aggression. Deathiance is in a lot of trouble there, and Dimi's just realizing how much of a beatdown he can put on this lane. Dimi's so good at controlling the lane and really trying to force you into unfortunate circumstances for the most part. Very, very good play. And talking about good play, Adapting still going aggressive.
Repikas very low.
Paul saves the day again.
There's the strong portal from Kero.
Portals and pillars.
I'm glad I didn't call that a pillar.
Portals and pillars. But iRaffer, sneakily coming around the back, was trying to find a lazy back coming out from Repikas. Unfortunately, he didn't find it. They will know the red buff is up on this side, though. So Panthera will be looking to invade that relatively soon. As you can see, the pressure in mid means that himself and Yammyn can combine to pick this up. And Cringe Crew recognize at least the dual lane do, but I don't think they're going to be in a position to stop this.
I bet they give red to iRaffer. Oh, red gets defended. Well played by Cringe Crew.
Did they actually? I thought they got the red.
No, it looks like nobody's picking it up.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, red buff went to Panthera there, but wisely, iRaffer just left. Instead of trying to pick it up and secure the buff, just take the experience in gold. The buff is important, but it's more important making sure you get the experience in gold and not giving away a kill. Exactly.
Just want to make sure you're a little bit safe. And through a couple of kills and a couple of buff camp invades, Panthera sit pretty nicely ahead of Cringe Crew by about 1.52k.
But you can see how behind Cringe Crew is starting to get already. emilitoo getting out-traded by Shaggyshenk, who leaps after it as well. Going to give him the chase to the jungle. Impale is down for a second, but Desert Fury is up. Going to land 3 of them, but now with the rotation from Geb, that will secure the kill. Shaggyshenk didn't solo him, but nearly did.
Well played by Shaggyshenk. More important was the story there about emilitoo. He just missed everything, unfortunately.
It was also overconfidence from him as well, being so far up against an Anhur. The impale into a pillar combination is just so strong if you know how to do it, and most all good hunters can do it. And look at this, iRaffer under pressure himself, but got impaled away from the sash that came in. Now he's going to turn it around.
iRaffer goes ahead, gets a couple of people pulled, and that means Yammyn's able to come through. Low health is support for Panthera, but finds safety on the backside. Adapting, on the other hand, will combine with Yammyn to get the kill onto Shaggyshenk. Adapting still going ham, and there's Deathiance all the way from the solo lane, trying to help out his Repi.
World Weaver gonna get blocked, but instead Dimi will clean it up with the cavalry charges. Kero has to take a pole to safety. Deathiance was here, but it's too little too late. He couldn't do anything in the big baby form to help out his team. Adapting played that so well. What you actually saw Adapting do then is he looked at Shaggyshenk, threw out a basic attack, and instead of using an ability immediately, wanted to know Shaggy was going to leap over the wall so he could land on him as he landed, but hold that thought, Deathiance will fall down, God Fury will as well, but Adapting held his abilities to see if Shaggy was going to leap or not, and when he realised Shaggy was not going to leap away, that's when he jumped at him round the corner, found the stun, we set up for the Spirit Ball for Yammyn to get his first kill of the game.
Highlight for our Cringe Crew, really loved Kero's positioning there, very, very, very low. Was Shaggyshenk, or Repikas rather, that was targeted by the Neith ultimate. And so got blocked by Kero, unfortunately for Cringe Crew and their fans. Dimi came all the way from solo and just smacked him with the cavalry charge. But the effort was there to protect from the Neith.
There was a little bit between Repikas and Shaggyshenk when they found that potential pick onto iRaffer there. A little bit of miscommunication, or trust is the word I'm really wanting to use here, in the other person landing their abilities. The sash connected from Repikas, and Repi was probably looking for a follow-up to that. Obviously, your next auto attack has a chance to crit if you've got your crit available to you, but it does deal the good damage as well in your next auto with a Nijar. Immediately, however, though, Shaggyshenk impaled him away from Repikas, which reduced some of the damage that they could get off in that engagement and look for the pick on iRaffer. Allowed him to turn it around in the end and wait for his reinforcements to arrive, which turned the tail.
I think it was a little bit less about teamwork there and just about the individual play. Honestly, I think that Shaggyshenk just thought he'd get the stun off of it. I think that he was going for the impale. No. He was going for. I think he was good.
No escape. Not going to pull anyone in. Purification not forced on by Kero. That was actually through space and time as his purification was on cooldown. So definitely another win for Panthera.
That's one of the problems with Anhur, is that sometimes when you go for that stun against the wall, it just winds up pushing the enemy back and doesn't actually help you out too much.
Well, a little bit earlier than 16-minute mark we used with Panthera. It's 14 minutes and it's 5-1. The Tier 1 tower falls in mid. And still 2 members of Cringe Crew on the left-hand side, so they're starting to pressure Tier 2 as all 5 members of Panthera group up looking to try and end this quick.
Shaggyshenk's going to come around from the backside, but it might be too little too late. 3 members caught in the portal. Big play coming out from Kero. Not able to follow up, and now here comes Deathiance. There goes Deathiance. emilitoo puts number 6 on the board for Panthera. Cringe Crew only have 1. Dimi trying to raise that number.
Not necessarily looking for kills here, even though they do pick up Kero. What they're trying to do is zone them back to get the Tier 2 tower off this iRaffer. Still going deep, keeping them all busy. You notice he took a back step there, so the sash didn't connect to him under the Phoenix. They get a Tier 2 tower there, and to be fair, Cringe Crew defended very well to begin with. They couldn't find the kill. Overextended, Deathiance pays the price, as does the Tier 2 tower.
Absolutely killing it today is Panthera. We mentioned a lot, or Hinduman actually brings this up more than anybody, that 16 minutes is really that magic number for Panthera, but where they group up and start just decimating the map. But they were able to push that a little bit earlier with their control they had, with the control that Panthera had over in the solo lane, specifically already putting the solo laner 2 kills down before they even transitioned into team fights.
Let's just head to the graphs now, and you'll see the big swing that just happened. The first Gold Fury went down, that's the big dip in favor of Panthera, and then after that, Tier 1 tower, Tier 2 tower, and then another Tier 1 tower. And then you're already looking at a deficit of like, guys, can we even get back in this one already?
That's a big question. With 8,500 down to the hole, Hindu, this early on, not even 16 minutes on the clock, that's definitely an uphill battle. But you got to look at the head-to-head situations here. Honestly, the jungle is where it's been affected the most. Repikas only level 12 compared to Adapting's level 16. Same thing in the mid lane, 2 levels down for Kero. Everybody else, 1.5 to 2 levels down. Not a huge deal. I'm really looking at Repikas, honestly. That's rough because I feel like it's not even his issue.
Well, talk about someone having an issue. Shaggyshenk under pressure, gonna have to purify, gonna get hit by the circle of protection too. Wasn't enough for the kill, but I tell you who's swinging around the back. The infamous jungler is waiting in the wings, and that should be a dead.
Ooh, Geb Shield will save the life of Shaggyshenk for the moment, adapting in some trouble, but Raffer protects him out. Big pull!
Not
But
going to
that's
find the
all
kill,
defensive.
though. They were still trying to find the kill. The adapting was unable to catch Shaggyshenk, who had the juke boots that were required for him. So Cringe Crew will keep their hunter alive, but he'll be returning to base now, which allows Panthera to pressure the tier 1 tower in left-hand side, while Raffer zones away 4 members alone.
By himself.
Big, crazy little switch up there between the two. So 7-1, Golden Experience continuing Panthera's favor once more. They're looking for an additional tower now here. Dimi's now made the rotation to sustain them. Red buffs available. Instead of looking for more, they're just going to take the red.
Yeah, I just want to strip out the jungle right here. Raffer, again, trying to zone by himself. Last time was successful. This time successful as well, combining with his dog and his Yammyn for a big kill. Going to the mid laner, Deathiance in some trouble as well.
He used the portal to try and get away. He's going to be able to be fine for now, but this tier 2 tower will not last too long. With Raffer able to tank it up with the bolster, defense is already fully maxed. Alongside Ninja, Dimi on that Guan sustaining the whole team up. This is becoming a bit of a rout right now, and Cringe Crew, well, they're down to just Phoenixes in a singular tier 2 tower at less than 18 minutes in the game.
Rough and tumble is this game for Panthera. They're just wrecking it, bringing it home. Gold Fury going to go their way as well. And, well, I feel like we've been doing a lot of recaps. So a little insight, into my personal way of commentary. I usually like to recap the game every 7 minutes, or when there is a big team play swing or a big objective. Unfortunately, Panthera have been getting an objective what seems like every minute and a half. So one more time, 8-1 is Panthera leading by 12.3k gold. Wow.
And this is the world champions for you. They're playing very, very well as a team, as a unit. The only one who seems off the ball just lately, and he's starting to swing back in favor again, is emilitoo. He's playing a lot better this game. His previous set, he said himself, he didn't perform to the standard he's used to playing at. Sure. And it's good to see him actually getting back into the swing of it. Level 17, one of the highest levels in the game, having a relatively good game for himself, even though he's a little low on the damage numbers here, and that's down to that throwing dagger for me.
That might be why we see the election to go Neith, honestly. The choice of going Neith, you're less in the spotlight. You're more the setup man.
I mean, for me, the reason to choose the Neith here is that Cringe Crew don't like it. They ban it all the time.
Of course. No. I completely agree. It's more against the enemy team, but judging from what you said, if emilitoo is feeling a little down on his individual play, Neith is a great character to sort of ramp right back up.
Yeah, I mean, potentially you get plenty of setup, plenty of safety in this god, sustain, as well as the ability to escape and, like you said, set up some kills as well. But low on the damage charts, 4.2k. Whereas his opponent, 5.2k Anhur, who's behind him, is doing a very good job of keeping pace, if not slightly ahead in terms of how the builds are going through. But still, Fire Giant, as we just saw there, we were talking about it over and over again. Fire Giant is being done here, or at least set up by Panthera, as Raffer sits on the side waiting for the rotation to come through and gets 2 chains, 3 chains off onto 2 different members.
Adapting on the other side, however, combines with Neith ult. Still can't find the kill on an emilitoo. He'll go ahead and use the ult to stop the dog in his tracks for just a moment. Deathiance not very tanky at all against Magical just yet. Just a single breastplate to his name. And the Urchin not yet finished. So very low on the side of the Magical defense when honestly, Neith, or Isis, has been the one wrecking it.
Well, this is gold lead for you. They've taken every tier 1 tower and every tier 2 tower. You don't have a single tower on your side. A singular tier 1 tower will give every member of your team 100 gold. So 3 of those tier 1 towers down, that's 300 gold for every single member alone. Then you look at a tier 2 tower. A tier 2 tower gives every member of your team 300 gold. So 3 of those down, that's another 900 gold. So you're talking 1,200 gold difference per person just off the towers alone. Then you factor in the Gold Fury, then you factor in the kills. This is why you can see the itemization is a big difference and why Cringe Crew cannot fight them. They have to hope for a Phoenix defense and just hope for the best is the best way I can say it.
And now the Fire Giant on top of everything just makes Cringe Crew in an even worse spot. A lot of times there is talk about the gold lead and how it becomes irrelevant later on in the game.
Well,
it's a lot later on from here. That's the point I'm making.
That's the big key right now, yeah.
Is that when you're down 10k gold 35 minutes in the game, you just sit there and go, last 5 to 10 more minutes, and we'll all have 6 items. Who cares?
2 to 3k is a decent gold lead to be, a gold loss, gold deficit to be at.
Yeah.
However, if it goes further past that, that's when you're starting to struggle. That's why you're like, okay, guys, this is starting to get a little bit too out of hand. But when you're at this stage already, at 20 minutes in, you're already like, Well, we knew this was going to be rough. It is the world champions after all.
So the question I pose to you now, Hindu, is it intelligent for CC to go ahead and surrender this one?
What I'd do is go for a full big old play. Just engage before they can engage on you, but it's not going to be allowed to as Panthera, once again, forcing ultimates themselves.
I love where Panthera is fighting, too. They're fighting in between the two Phoenixes, winding up on the left-hand side, forcing Cringe Crew to decide how to split. And that split one more time will make Deathiance fall. 5 deaths in total.
And Deathiance here, he's just getting, even in big baby form, they're just bursting through him. They don't care about the big baby, which a lot of people ignore. Spirit Ball will destroy Shaggyshenk. They'll look towards Geb, he'll roll out back to the tower, but the Phoenix in mid falls too. Only one Phoenix remains, and Panthera, well, they want to go for dinner already, it seems. They're trying to get this over with quick today. Very good performance for game 1.
Kero gonna fall. iRaffer gets the dot. 22-17 on the clock does that final one read, and it goes the way of Panthera.
And to be fair, if you put them in your fantasy draft this week, Panthera fans would be very happy. They would have liked it to go on another 10-15 minutes just for the extra KD ratio. But good performance from Panthera. And not a surprise, really.
Exactly. This time around, Deathiance really got exposed there, winding up or being about half of the total deaths of his team. And as we said, he is traditionally the coach. He's the brainchild behind the squad. And for what it's worth, Deathiance does a very, very good job when it comes to picks and bans, combining with EmilZy to really bring out a lot of the gameplay strategies.
And picks and bans. Picks and bans weren't bad. There was nothing wrong in the picks and bans. What you actually find in here, though, is that Zashu normally, when he was playing over in the solo lane for him, Zashu was one of these players that used to sit there and hold his lane. This allowed Repikas to focus on in the mid lane here with Kero and find the kills at the rafters to set them up with EmilZy. With Zashu not being here, Repi's having to make rotations to solo that he shouldn't be needing to because they've not got somebody that they're used to in the team.
One of the things, before we move on to the fantastic game that Panthera had, I want to mention about Cringe Crew is that I really like this. Zashu is a young player and got banned for doing what young players do, just making mistakes and being harassment, right? That's what he's banned for. Cringe Crew, they are looking for somebody outside of the substitute to really fill those roles. But they mentioned that that Cringe Crew will be sticking with Zashu. They think that this was a misstep and obviously not a step in the right direction, but they look at this more of a learning experience, and they want Zashu to learn from it, grow from it, and become not only the good player that he proved he was last year, but become the good person that so many of the players on Cringe Crew are.
We spoke a little bit about Cringe Crew, but let's go back to Panthera. They're the ones that won this game, adapting with the first blood. And a good performance from him once again. I love the way he played the game as a whole set. Straight away over to Deathiance in the solo lane, put the pressure on with Dimi, and find the first kill.
Yeah, this was a big one early on, and this set the stage for the game pretty much. Adapting came out on top in the solo lane, not just once, but many times.
And this was them noticing that they were rotating for the back harpies. The whole team collapsed. The combination was perfect. Original stun was the big note there. Gets the original stun. Gets him to the damage off. But look what EmilZy did here. I believe he got the Cataclysm off. We saved that Nijar at the end. Very, very good play from EmilZy in response, but adapting, obviously, good performance.
And the pillar, not portal, just in case, can't walk through it. Excellent placement. Adapting, not the only one going to work here, though. I mentioned earlier on, not a lot of direct damage coming out from the squad. That's why Yammyn really had to step it up. Brought his Isis into the mid lane. And
Yammyn does a lot of direct damage, to be fair. But you've got to connect him, that's the key. The Spirit Balls were on point this game. They were dealing a lot of damage, that most of them were max range too. And to be fair, this is only level 13. Just want to point that out. He was level 13 when he's hitting these abilities over and over again. Then he hits 14 off that engagement. But for the fact that he shares experience now, mid laners share so much experience with junglers.
Look at that.
And with the supports. To deal this much damage is a very, very good sign. It's a very difficult role mid right now.
Yeah, Yammyn really able to work his magic. Those Spirit Balls, that one didn't hit.
And once again, just going to get the silence off and pick up another kill. So Yammyn gets a good performance. And, well, we expected that sort of game. Sure, I'm not going to lie. I think we all came into this expecting this, especially with Zashu, you know, falling out because of the issues. Deathiance stepping in against Dimi. And the boys at Panthera march on.
Yeah, I mean, Zashu was a big part of what made Cringe Crew a positive look for this split. Zashu had really changed a lot during Super Regionals, and a lot of people looked at Cringe Crew and go, you know what, they were a middle of the pack team last time around. Maybe they can find themselves on the top end with that solo laner. But unfortunately, one more time, Cringe Crew unable to really bring Zashu out due to his competitive ban. So